to do with it, Jason, but you've got to be careful if you're thrusting your boots up in the air. Tell us about the Swans.
We need to talk about Sydney because this is the team that most people have dropped off over the last 2, 3, 4 weeks because they hadn't been playing Sydney-like football. Well, they got it back together. They were clinical with their ball movement, and the speed of ball movement at times was quite devastating. They used the corridor when they could, but have a look at the way they're going from defensive 50 to hitting targets in attack.
We're focused a lot on their kicking out of defence,
yep.
and that improved, no doubt, immeasurably.
And they took on the corridor whenever they got the opportunity. They'd bring it back inside, and then they just found targets. Look at Jetta running ahead here. And his ball use was as good as I've ever seen. Now, he gets held up slightly, but have a look at the resultant pass that just hits Tippett on the lead.
There's a suggestion that Jetta is thinking about offers from other clubs. That's his right. He's been at the one club since the start. But they can't afford to lose him. But there were big numbers for the Swans midfield.
Well, that's the entire midfield smashed Adelaide's midfield to bits. I mean, they couldn't get their hands on the footy. They were just racking up numbers. You could have given votes to any of these blokes. They just dominated from start to finish.
Disappointing thing for Adelaide, their midfielders didn't put any work at all into the opposition, especially the opposition midfield. To leave Lewis Jetta out on the wing all day long, let him run around on his own was unbelievable, really. But they were fantastic. I agree with you. I did the game with you, Jace, totally. And to get their game back from the defensive 50 was good to see. They need that September.
I know what you would have loved, Gerard. Kurt Tippett's performance in the ruck. He played as good a game as I've seen from him for quite a long time. He was the number one ruckman. They had Hobie Nankervis there, but he only played the second at ruckman's role. He started in the ruck. He dominated in the ruck. He had a presence. And then when he drifted forward, he kicked goals. I thought he was brilliant. And this is what they paid the big money for, Gerard.
Well, I was really pleased he responded. I thought in some respects he was unfairly criticised 2 weeks ago because he had that broken hand. He's playing in full forward. He's a lead-up forward, and so often he's not being hit up on the lead. Put him in the ruck up against an all-Australian quality ruckman. That's a pretty good performance.
But again, it raises that question that you posed a couple of weeks ago. What's the best mix-up for their rucks? Is Tippett the number one ruckman? When Pike is fit, he hasn't been in great form. He's also not fit. He's had a few injuries. But if he's up and fit, he needs to be playing well to come back into that side. Or do they go with Tippett as the number one ruckman and perhaps use a Sam Reid as a backup?
It's a really interesting question that John Longmire needs to, I guess, solve the solution to, surely. They've got Nankervis, Pike, Goods coming back into the side, hopefully this week, if not this week, certainly the next, and Reid. They look as if they've got more run when Tippett's the number one ruckman. And Reid, I think, is developing pretty nicely as that extra tall. Goods can play tall in the forward line.
He can
also add that wing spot, and that's probably where they're missing, that bit of outside run.
He looks better, Tippett, with more minutes in the ruck. Certainly more than 50% in the ruck, that's for sure. So you wouldn't want to be playing a Pike who's playing only out there for 40% of the ruck. So, but you're right, Goods and Reid can there and support Tippett if Tippett does push forward, I believe, behind the ball, because they are good in the air, especially. They've got
great faith in Mike Pike. He's a legend in reality, given he's come from Canada and he's a premiership player and played well. But if he's not 100%, I think he's in trouble.
Plenty of improvement to come from the Swans too, because Buddy Franklin's only going at around 60 or 70% at the moment. Now, he kicked 3 goals from just a handful of possessions. I think it was 7 possessions in all.
It's efficient.
He's favouring his back. He spent plenty of time on the bench. We saw him holding his back a couple of times. But if you watch the way he attacked a couple of contests, the usual zest and aggression wasn't there, and this is the classic example. He backs off, he's breaking, he's pulling up, he can feel the back. He's not right. There's a grimace on his face. So you know that there's plenty more to come from him. Hopefully that back gets back to 100% very, very quickly. And at the other end of the ground, I think it was almost a similar story with Tex Walker. He doesn't look 100% fit. He didn't have the power in the one-on-one contest, and he didn't explode on the lead, which he's normally very, very good at. In fact, Ted Richards ran past him a couple of times, so I don't think he's operating at 100%.
I thought, Gerard, we finally saw, the emotional toll, or certainly the physical toll, obviously, on the weekend from the Phil Walsh tragedy. We're waiting for it. We knew it was too big of a ask for the Crows players to go for the rest of the season, not have that. They looked flat as pancakes on the weekend. It was really difficult performance. They had no run and chase.
Tackling was poor.
Tackling was really poor. No spread at all. You can totally understand it, but it looked like a tired side.
We do a lot of stats and we talk a lot of numbers, but tackling is not just a number. There is also the quality of the tackle, and in this respect, the Crows failed dismally on the weekend. Every time a Crow got tackled, it was a free kick or a ball up. Every time a Swan got tackled, they broke it and they were still able to get the ball away. And I thought it was really, really poor. We saw so many broken tackles that ended up in Swans goals, I think Scott Kemp really would have been bitterly disappointed with the lack of commitment to effort. I mean, there are two ways of tackling. You tackle with aggression, you tackle with purpose, or you're just going through the motions. And they were just going through the motions on the weekend. Far too easy.
Well, they've got to get their skates on if they're going to get themselves into the 8. They're currently 9th. They played Geelong, are in 8th position in round 23. Hopefully Mark Evans will be able to tell us who's playing Friday night in round 23.
He's got a lot of things to tell us.
Yes, they've got him booked in for about half an hour. The Dockers on top of the ladder. They're 3 games clear of the 3rd-placed Hawthorn. And yet you can make a case for each and every one of the top 4 to go through to the grand final. You can make a case for all of them to go out in straight sets. And you've got a couple of wild cards. Western Bulldogs coming and the Tigers. They're North Melbourne. I think they're capable of almost pinching a top 4 spot. And Geelong up against Adelaide. GWS, they don't win this week, it's over. And Collingwood and Port Adelaide, mathematical chances only at this stage.
Yeah, they've both got the 8th, 9th and 10th have all got very winnable games. They've got a couple of really difficult ones too. So going to be really interesting there. I'm not sure who sneaks in. The 8 might be set. That round 23 game is huge. At the top end of the ladder, though, Sydney may now have sealed up that final spot in the 4. But, geez, you love the Western Bulldogs. They're young list coming on. They just keep plucking away.
Let's go to the Dockers. Top of the